auto start isn't set up, but that's just fine. I have been, let's just get this going here. It absolutely, this is the Brian for Liberty podcast. I do this live because that's how I roll. And I'm just going to wait a little bit for people to come in. But I'll tell you something. It never ceases to amaze me how easy it is to lie to people. Like it's mind bending how easy it is to lie to people. I get into the I get in here and I'm constantly hearing that the these tax cuts are causing this massive deficit. I talk about deficit spending and our fiscal path and the fact that we're going to blow up our currency. I talk about that a lot. And I'm constantly hearing that the problem is all these spending cuts or tax cuts. And it is really actually pretty easy to see that that's not the case. And I just don't get how people are so easily fooled. It's almost like we want to believe the thing so bad that we just don't care. Yeah. We just don't care. The key here is we believe what we believe, not because of any sense of reality, I guess. Maybe that's the best way to put it. But any sense of realistic, objective, hey, let me go. This stuff takes virtually no time at all to look up. I'm doing this while I'm talking. I am pulling this information up in front of me. These are federal tax receipts right here. Why is it doing this? Come on, get in there. These are the federal tax receipts right here. We just slide this over so you can see the end here. So we had a dip, obviously. Geez, what a big surprise. Is this federal, all federal government tax receipts? This is like what they're collecting. I wish I could zoom in on this a little bit. Here's the 5-year run. Here's 10. Here's 10 years, the last 10 years of federal tax receipts. So we peaked out here at 3.128 trillion, something like that. Dipped all the way down to 2.7. And now we're back up at somewhere in the 3 trillion. The bottom line is that there's no scenario. There's nothing here where you say, hey, look, we just massively are reducing the amount of revenue that we're collecting. That's not happening. That's not a real thing that's taking place. And I just watched this video today about like totalitarianism and how a person's mindset actually has to change, and the ways in which a person's mindset has to change in order for them to fall victim to like a totalitarian regime. And it's fascinating because a big part of it is this. It is this kind of willingness, almost. I think maybe the best way to put it is like a willful ignorance of, I don't care what the truth is. I literally am not concerned with what is true. I just want confirmation. You know, we know about confirmation bias. We're familiar with it. I just want somebody to tell me something that confirms what I already believe. And I will rebel strongly against the opposite. I will rebel strongly against any facts, no matter how logically they're presented, and no matter how obvious the truth is. I will rebel against the facts if they do not support my preconceived ideas. The inability to learn on the front end, but then the inability to even challenge the preconceived belief is, to me, terrifying. It is terrifying to me. And I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that problem is. I get on a platform like this and you know, I got a tiny little audience here, I got a tiny little audience over on YouTube. I get on, you try and speak the truth and to the best of your ability. I'm not saying I know, obviously I don't know everything, but you try and get on here, you speak the truth to the best of your ability. You present pretty basic, like, here's a factual piece of information. For example, this is a fact. And here's the raw data. Like, I talk about the tax receipts and I say, look, we're collecting more money than we've ever collected. It's not a matter of it right here. Here's the numbers. And I talk about how much more we spent and what the massive increase in spending was from pre-COVID to post-COVID. And if we just went back to pre-COVID spending, we'd have a balanced budget at this point. And the information is right there. You can go to the IRS website and people are just like, no, that's not the case. We need we need more taxes. We need more revenue. The issue is on the revenue side. And it's a mind blower to me. I don't understand it. I don't know where it comes from. And then I'm watching a video today and I say, I don't know where it comes from. And then I go in here and I watch these videos and I watch like the PragerU people, like on the political left. And I watch the, guys like More Perfect Union and Second Thought and whatever from the left. And so I watch these videos I try and I probably watch way more left leaning videos than right leaning videos. Cause I'm not a conservative. I don't agree with a lot of the things that conservatives have to say. So I watch a lot of left leaning political stuff. And so so I'm watching this video today and the guy from More Perfect Union, he's doing this video about how we have destroyed some kind of, I don't even know what the industry was anymore. I watched the video today. I don't even remember, but it's like the destruction of this industry. And the whole thing is, seeds industry, the seed industry, and farmers are paying more for seeds and we don't have good seeds and all these different things. And so I'm watching this video and this entire video is about how corporations went to the government and said, hey, we want to control this market. So can you do this thing for us? And government's like, yeah, absolutely. We'll do that for you. No problem. And that's the whole video. It's patents. It's regulations, patents, all these different things that allowed four companies to essentially take control of the seed market. And all I could think was, well, if government didn't get involved in this in the first place, this wouldn't have been a problem. And I look back through our economic history and you can point to all these different interventions from the government that have caused these issues. And you can point to it. You can draw the history. You can draw the roadmap, the historical roadmap, and say, here's how this thing happened. And there are people who love government so much, who are so enamored with it, who are so afraid of being free people. I think that's a big part of it. People are so afraid of being free people that if you dare criticize the state, if you dare criticize the government, then they're reflexively going to be in opposition to you. And it just takes me back. It takes me back to this video that I watched today about totalitarianism. It's on After School here, I'm not going to tell you where because friggin' this particular platform will suppress my feed, but it really gets into like the mindset that allows totalitarianism to take place. So, and then I saw something that dovetails into this a little bit is I see this thing about the Venezuelan gangs taking over apartment complexes essentially in Colorado. And there's this meme or whatever that pops up on TikTok and it's essentially try that in the South or whatever. And I get there's a lot of this kind of tough talk, I think, from the right, the 2A people and whatnot, and try that here, try that there. And I'm like, dude, 4 years ago, they locked you in your house, shut down your businesses, and you didn't do anything. Like, there's all this tough talk. And I just keep thinking to myself, like, okay, so what's the magical line that needs to be crossed in order for people who claim to love liberty and claim to want to be able to fight for liberty? What's the magical line that's got to be crossed? And I'm not talking about like revolutionary acts. I'm saying, hey, I'm going to grow some of my own food, buy a couple of chickens. I'm gonna, you know what I mean? I'm going to get involved with my local community and do some good works and donate. And I'm going to start disengaging from the system. Hell, I'm going to go through the inconvenience of taking all my cash out of my local bank and trading in just cash as opposed to using my credit card. Like there's all these different things you can do to slowly in some way disengage from the state. How about what's it going to take for you to go, hey, I hate the two-party system and I believe we need a third party. I can't vote for them. I can't vote for them right now. They're not ready. They're just not there yet. And it's so important that we beat this other guy that I can't vote for a third party candidate. But I am going to find my local libertarian, green, constitution, whatever. I'm going to find my local third party affiliate, somebody local who works with, who's works with one of these third parties that are active in my area. And I'm going to give them some money and I'm actually going to get freaking involved and start instituting some change in my area. What's it going to take? That's the kind of stuff. We're not even willing to do that, folks. As a nation, we're not even willing to do those things. The simplest, easiest, completely legal things that aren't going to get you in any trouble. We're not talking about protests. We're not talking about marches. We're not talking about any of this other stuff that might get you in trouble. We're talking about small acts of rebellion. You live in a red state or a deep blue state. Why not vote for a third party candidate so that they get better ballot access next time around? Like just little tiny things we can do to break outside of the normal behavior so that we can start breaking away from this. And we're not willing to do that. And so I like this idea that we're going to have, I think that's the funniest part about all the, like you listen to the Tim Pools of the world or whatnot, and they talk about the Civil War, this and Civil War. I'm like, it's going to be a civil war. What's going to be a civil war? Unless we're starving, unless that happens, unless the grid goes down, and it wouldn't be a civil war if the grid goes down. It would be mass chaos and whatever. But if you're talking about like a civil war, like the American people are going to rise, come on, that's not going to come. As long as we got Netflix, NFL season's getting ready to kick off. As long as we got all that going on, there's just nothing's going to happen. We don't need to live in fear of like this weird violent, this internal violence that people keep talking about potentially happening. And, you know, look, I understand you put this thing in the headline of your YouTube video title and that's going to help you get views and all that, views and clicks and likes. And that's what it's all about. I understand. And I do these boring long form things where I talk about economics and, you know, I'll never grow beyond what I am probably, but that's perfectly fine with me. But it just, the idea that there's this rebel spirit that still lives in the United States is like, sadly, I'm not buying it. I just don't think I'm just not buying it at all. And then I got an interesting article. I don't know if I've still got it up. I will try and get this in front of me. Oh, here we go. The hoax, right? So like, this is a great example of the whole bit right here, actually. So the Tulsi Gabbard thing. So Tulsi Gabbard is endorsing Donald Trump, right? So I want you to look at the headline of this article and just, this blows my mind. Tulsi Gabbard's journey to Donald Trump is an ominous sign. Let me get this centered up over here a little bit. Is an ominous sign of Putin's power. Like they're still doing it. Like the Democrats are still doing it. They're still playing into this whole like Donald Trump is a Putin plant and Russian influences over our election and all this. So they're still like, it's been widely and wildly debunked that this is anything more than like it was garbage, right? This was a thing completely contrived, created by the Democrats, a steal dossier. It's well known. For the most part, the Democrats are they'll still put the articles out. Oh, she's a Putin plant. And what kills me about the Tulsi Gabbard thing is this is a pretty well respected. This should be someone who's very well respected in Democrat circles. She wanted universal health care. She wanted universal health care. She's been staunch. She's a staunchly anti-war veteran woman of color who wants universal health care. Why are the Democrats rejecting her? Well, it's not the Democrats are not rejecting Tulsi Gabbard. The Democrats have not rejected Tulsi Gabbard. The people who pay the money is rejecting Tulsi Gabbard. There's not another excuse. You can even say, she's not likable. She's this, that. Okay, fine. You can say all those things if you want to. But there's no reason for your run-of-the-mill Democrat or for the Democrat Party in general to want to oust this woman from their ranks or to even risk alienating her from their ranks. This is a woman who should be incredibly popular in Democrat circles, like incredibly popular. And yet, here we are. So on Monday, former Democrat House member Tulsi Gabbard, a Democrat from Hawaii, endorsed Donald Trump for the presidency and became one of his surrogates on the campaign trail. This is bad news. It confirms Trump's tilt towards the dangerous isolationist movement at work in the Republican politics for a long time now. And let me just be clear about what that means. The tilt towards Republican politics for a long time now is the fact that the Democrat Party has taken from the left the anti-war position. It is the Republicans who are the anti-war party now, which is, it's just mind-blowing. It's mind-boggling to me. But yeah, you think about Barack Obama's ascension. He was elected as an anti-war president. He was elected because we were so war weary under 8 years of George W. Bush post 9/11 that this was it. It was the massive marches and the protests and all this stuff kind of ushered in the Obama era. And when Obama was clearly not the anti-war president that you thought you were voting for, the Republicans have kind of taken up the mantle on that and saying, like, we shouldn't be engaging in this. Now, look, I'm not saying that the Republicans are, Lindsey Graham's a war hawk. He's never seen a conflict. He doesn't want to get the U.S. military involved in all this other stuff. But the Republicans are this isolationist movement. It's like we shouldn't be getting involved in the foreign affairs of all these different countries. It's a return to kind of the founding principles, realistically, more so than it is an isolationist movement. They called Ron Paul an isolationist, right? And obviously he's not an isolationist. We want to trade with everybody, right? What is it? Trade with all, entangling alliances with none is kind of like the founding principles of this country. Gabbard's opposition to helping Ukraine win its long-suffering defensive war against Vladimir Putin's slaughter of civilians and its annexation of its territory is only the latest installment in her long-time efforts to advance policies that play into Putin's hands. They're still trying to play up the Putin angle. I just don't get it. I don't understand how that has any gas left. That they can still get away with it. They can still even write the thing that they're just going to use a Putin story. It's just Goldberg's so Putin's hands immediately after entering Congress in 2013, just months after Syrian tyrant Bashir. So this is Syrian. Did I say Syrian? Syrian tyrant Bashir al-Assad and his Hezbollah allies began murdering hundreds of thousands of Syrians to stop peaceful pro-democracy protests. Now, a lot of people will look back on that and say that these peaceful protests weren't as spontaneous and as innocent and as grassroots in the nation as we may have been led to believe. Central Intelligence Agency and whatnot, and the desire to topple Assad. Nobody's here saying he's a good guy or that he shouldn't have, but that he's not a horrible person. He's not a war criminal, all these different things. Okay, fine. That's all fine. Are we going to go to war with them over this? And then and I said this back in 2016, if Hillary Clinton won in 2016, we'd be at war with Russia right now, right? In my mind, there's no doubt of that. She was running on no fly zones over Russia, all this different stuff. And so the idea that, I guess my point is they've been gunning for Syria, they've been gunning for Iran, and when I say they, I mean the Democrats and the warmongers in general, the Lindsey Grahams and the military industrial complex, we've been gearing up for this kind of a conflict for quite some time. To the point that we're still going to use this fake Putin story to try and, now that there's actually, and I don't want to give the Republicans too much credit. They're not an anti-war party. They're certainly not against the military industrial complex or anything like that, but they want Trump, and that's where we're getting into this weird thing, right? Trump wants to stop the conflict in Ukraine. Trump wants the conflict in Gaza to end. And from those positions, the media is painting him as the guy who's going to start World War III, right? And they're going to use this Putin plant stuff. The idea that if you're anti-war, you must be on the side of Vladimir Putin is to me, it's insane that this is coming from the left, right? Are these guys worse than Saddam Hussein? Like, we were opposed to taking out Saddam Hussein and going into Iraq, which you guys were on the left was on the right side of that conversation. So I don't understand, like, where this insane, like, war hawking Democrat, there's Democrats that have always been part of the, compromised by the, military industrial complex, war hawk Democrats. I mean, you go back, Democrats have never really been the party of the anti-war party, but now they're the foaming at the mouth war hawks now. She and others like her were influential at the crucial turning point in August 2013. As I explained in my book, let me try and sell my book here. Holland, this is the French talking about needing airstrikes. Several American foreign policy leaders at the time, like Hillary Clinton and Susan Rice, wanted a Western coalition to go further and establish I've just said it, and establish a no-fly zone to protect Syrian cities from Assad's wanton slaughter. This was going to be a no-fly zone that would forbid Russians from entering Syrian airspace. That's what was going on at the time. A lot of people don't remember this back in 2015. It was like, it started getting really obvious that if Hillary Clinton was elected president, we were going to be at war with Russia. And I feel like Ukraine is kind of their second shot at that war. I don't like Donald Trump. I'm not a Donald Trump supporter, but I have a hard time kind of just thinking if I were in a swing state, would I have to vote for Trump? Because that's how concerned I am about a global conflict, World War III, war with Russia, this kind of stuff. That's the violent conflict. I wish all these idiots talked about civil war in the United States. The real thing you need to be worrying about right now is World War III, a global conflict with Russia, with China, with these nuclear powers. Let's see here. Let's see. But Gabbard, like Edward Miliband in the UK Parliament, led the effort to stop any Western military response to genocide in Syria. She supported Assad's lie that Assad's enemies were mostly terrorists. In fact, Assad helped create ISIS, so he could peddle the lie that Gabbard so gullibly believed. The results of his inaction: Assad leveled large portions of major Syrian cities, killed over 300,000 non-combatants, and drove at least 6 million Syrians to flee, including millions who entered Turkey and Europe, all with Gabbard's continued support. The interesting thing here is, unless you were there, and even if you were on the ground there, how would you know whether or not this is even true? I don't know what happened in Syria. I don't know what happened on the ground there. I don't know who was fighting who. Like most Americans, I think I shouldn't even say like most Americans. I think most Americans kind of this is what my trusted media source that I like is telling me, and therefore this must be the thing that's accurate. I think there's a lot of Americans who are like that. But like most Americans who maybe don't follow mainstream media, the whole situation was very confusing. It's like, what is going on? Why are we over here? What are we doing? So anyway, Putin was emboldened by the failure of NATO nations to act against Assad in 2013, even after he crossed the chemical red line. So when Ukrainians rose up against their own dictator, just as the Syrians had done during the Arab Spring, Putin attacked Ukraine in response. The rest, blah, blah, blah. We annexed Crimea, which, by the way, happened while Obama was president, but I guess we won't get into that. Established proxy forces in Ukraine, and Putin also entered the Syrian civil war on Assad's side. I don't get it. And so when you talk about the my little deal here. My little display that I like to put up during my live streams here, just to get some attention, just to get people talking about these two political parties and how much more they have in common than they have that divides them is kind of where I'm always trying to get to here. Let me just transition back to this, and then that's for me. That's the whole bit. I don't really have another story. I was actually usually when I'm on TikTok live simultaneously with this, I get more chat action. I'm not getting a ton of chat action, so I might not stay on super long. This is of course probably because I haven't been doing enough lives lately, but that's gonna change. I keep saying it's gonna change, but we'll see if it actually does. Hopefully it does. Otherwise I'm just looking for news stories. I usually just hop on here and this is just killer stuff, man. Conservative moms termed by Trump would rather avoid his misogyny. I'm just so sick of it, dude. I'm exhausted. Like I'm literally just exhausted. Let's dive into this little story. This looks like it's going to be a ton of fun. It's always, I like the picture. So funny. Let's take 1,000 of these pictures and see if we can get one that looks nice in a bedroom. This article has been revised to reflect the following correction. An earlier version of this article incorrectly said that a local chapter of Moms for Liberty. I want you to listen to this. I want you to just listen to this correction to this article. This article has been revised to reflect the following correction. An earlier version of this article incorrectly said that a local chapter of Moms for Liberty had accidentally quoted Adolf Hitler in a newsletter. The group, which later issued an apology, was aware that the quote was from Hitler when the newsletter was published. An earlier version of this article incorrectly said that a local chapter. Okay. It didn't look like a typical Trump rally. There were trays of mini cupcakes and macaroons. There were squadrons of helicopter moms buzzed off white wine. The excited women were wandering around the basement of a Marriott in downtown Washington, waiting for former President Donald Trump to show. It was the Joyful Warriors Summit thrown by a bunch of agitated parents known as the Moms for Liberty, a conservative activist group that was founded during the COVID pandemic. The group, which has more than 130,000 members across the country, has become quite influential in Republican politics. And they have. And I think they're on an issue that I honestly, I don't know where we're at on this issue. And a lot of this is the whole, it's transgenderism. It's the idea of certain textbooks being in classrooms and so on and so forth. And I honestly don't know where the country stands on this stuff. I really don't, because it seems to me like the Democrats are losing the culture war. I feel like things are starting to turn back to like more conservative, but women are still far more on the left side of this. And I thought that the children argument of like, we're going to transition kids and we're going to put this stuff in your kids' classroom and all this other stuff, I thought that would hurt Democrats with women. And it doesn't seem to have, which is a little disappointing. Just because of my own positions on this. So I guess if you're not of the ilk that, hey, these things are not great for kids and shouldn't have it around. If you don't believe those things, then okay, fine. I guess it's not bad for you, but for me, I'm on the, hey, this stuff is not particularly great. Anyway, it feels like the Democrats are losing the culture war broadly. I think that you're seeing Hollywood kind of start moving away from this woke, quote unquote, culture. DEI is starting to get pushed out of a lot of these big corporations, so on and so forth. And so it feels like the tide might be turning a little bit from a cultural perspective. We might be moving back to a more conservative bend. But I don't know that it's going to have a significant impact on the upcoming election. I think with what's going on in Ukraine, what's going on in Gaza, inflation, the housing market, the border, I don't know that the culture war, which was like the rage It seemed like 2 years ago, this was the thing. This was the only thing people wanted to talk about 2 years ago. It just seems like it's fading into the background, which probably means that the Democrats and the left, the establishment left, and the millionaire left and Hollywood left is probably losing this, starting to lose ground on this battle. So they don't want to talk about it anymore. But anyway, that's not what we're here for. Their parental preoccupations were made apparent by programming and pamphleteering on display. They were panels called "What Does It Mean to Abolish the Department of Education?" Moms Know Best, protecting kids from secret gender transition in schools. There's literature on child sex trafficking and on the damage wrought by COVID-era school closures. And there are copies of a book titled "Take Two Aspirin and Call Me by My Pronouns" by attorney doctors and social destroyers destroying American medicine. Jesus, it's a long title for a pamphlet or a book. It's interesting to me that if you're on the political left, right, in this country, that the idea that I understand you don't want to, obviously you don't want to abolish the Department of Education if you're on the political left in this country. But how you, this goes back to that whole, this goes right back to that video I watched on totalitarianism and how like the mind rot that has to take place in a society in order for this kind of a thing to work. There's a law, and I don't know if it's in California, and I don't know if it's still on the books. I don't know if it was just proposed. But this was a law that was out there where it was going to prohibit schools from informing parents if their children were transitioning. I mean, to inform, I'm just going to pull this up real quick. I'm just pulling it up. Sorry. If children are transitioning. Spell this all out. So Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill on Monday. Here we go. This is it. Here's the story. I'm going to bring it. It's like, boom, pops right up. Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill on Monday that prohibits mandating. Okay. So prohibits mandating that teachers notify families about student gender identity changes. So this is that's a pretty big distinction. So teachers aren't prohibited from from notifying families, but you're not allowed to mandate that they do so. Okay. Yeah. That's a distinction without a difference, I guess. But the way I look at this is whatever issue my kid is going through in their school is my business. Period. And yes, school should be, especially something like this, you should be required to inform me if my kid is going through something like this. You should be required to tell me. And as a parent, right? As a parent, whether you're on the left or the right, wouldn't you want that? Wouldn't you want to be informed if your kid was going through something like this? If your kid felt like, hey, look, if your kid feels like they're not able to talk to you about it, no, they're still your child. I still have a right to know what's going on with my kid. And it seems odd to me that there are parents who have so bought into, I am a Democrat, and therefore I have to essentially go along with whatever is happening out there, whatever they're saying. That has to be part of my identity. That, yeah, that's fine. I'm willing to hand over essentially the parenting responsibilities for my own children in order to make sure that I'm still on the right ideological side of this conversation for the girls that I go to brunch with, essentially. The moms from Liberty can get a bit carried away. One of their local chapters once quoted Adolf Hitler. He alone owns the youth, gains the future, and then issued an apology disavowing the Fuhrer. We should not have quoted him in our newsletter, but still there's someone on Friday made for a good case study. It was packed with the sort of voters. I love that they had to apologize. How many times including his own vice president, candidate, by the way, but how many times has the left referred to Trump as the next Hitler? You know what I mean? It cracks me up. But still, there's someone on Friday made a good case study. It was packed with the sort of voters Mr. Trump hopes can help him win in November, fired up suburban women. These are women that have largely never been in political They're people who, in the busiest times of their lives, realize they need to get involved in politics. I like that. Okay, we got to get involved. It was an interesting time for Mr. Trump to address a women's group, given that lately he has been attacking President Kamala Harris in ever more misogynistic ways. First of all, so this is an interesting little. They aren't going to go. He has implied that. Let me just read this. Read this out. He has implied that Mrs. Harris's former romantic relationship with Willie Brown, a former San Francisco mayor, fueled her political success. I don't know that he's made that claim. I think the claim that he's made and that relationship sparked the beginning of, like, launched her career, really. Doesn't matter. Okay, it's fine. I don't know if it's misogynistic. So if he says something factual, that this relationship helped her political career, is it misogynistic? If it's true, if it was a man whose political career was helped by sleeping with a woman, and you state that fact, I don't know. I don't know how important it is. The biggest problem with it is probably the fact that we're just not. Like, can we just talk about the freaking issues at hand and policy? But okay. Oh man. Let's see. On Wednesday, he shared on Truth Social an image of Mrs. Harris and Hillary Clinton, appended with commentary from another user with a reference to oral sex. I really want to bring this up. I shouldn't. Let me bring this over here. I just want to see. I got to see it, man. Oh, New York Times, you suck. All right. I'm not paying for it. Asked what she thought about Mr. Trump posting this Miss Justice Stammered. You know what? I think that a lot of people say a lot of things. We're going to focus on the issues that are hurting American voters. Hey, look, we're focused. Some of the models will acknowledge they would prefer a little less crude talk from the man they hope will lead the nation once more. That was really tacky. That's very disrespectful, so on and so forth. So, yeah, he's Donald Trump. I guess he is who he is, I guess, to some extent. I'm not forgiving him for it. I'm not blaming him for it. I'm like, this is who the guy is. You're going to vote on the issue. So what's the issue that matters to these women? Well, I want to know if my kid's transitioning in school. Okay, well, I don't want genderqueer in the classroom. Okay, well, who do I got to vote for in order to make that happen? I think we need to secure the border. Hey, there's a Venezuelan gang taking over a city or town or whatever the hell in Colorado. Who's going to stop that from happening? Well, probably this guy. Okay, well, he says it goes back to the whole thing. It's kind of the Trump supporter credos. Like, I miss mean tweets and low gas prices. The Democrats aren't making a very good case against Donald Trump. And I think he's making a better chance that his surrogates are making a better case against the left. And they're just not countering appropriately. But I don't know. Like I said, I didn't vote for him last time. I'm not going to vote for him this time. He's just the guy that he is. You know what I mean? He's not more than. I don't know. Donald Trump is such an anomaly. I don't even know how to bring it, how to talk about it. All right. So I'm going to wrap up here. I don't know who it was, whoever's in here. Thanks to whoever's on the YouTube channel right now, just watching for like 30 minutes. Even if I'm just on in the background, I appreciate it. A like, a follow, and a share are always greatly appreciated. I got the technology going. It's been a crazy couple of weeks. I feel like I am finally ready to really get rolling on this thing. My goal is to be on here most nights, doing lives, trying to get ideally up to an hour plus, so that we can generate a little bit more activity in the stream. I used to do this right on my phone or right in the TikTok app, but I feel like I got a lot more activity that way. And since I've transitioned over to doing it in TikTok Studio on the desktop, it feels like it's just harder to get people in here. But the goal is to just be in here a little bit more often. I actually want to start scheduling these things in advance, with topics lined up. This is really just kind of another test of the sound and how everything's working. Seems like everything went off without a hitch. This time. So, hopefully it's good to go. And, ideally, I don't see any reason why not. I should be back tomorrow night around the same time. And look forward to seeing you guys then.